Okay, why, as a nice guy, are you actually a masochist? This is something which has stuck with me for a very long time since I first read Alexander Lowen's book, Bioenergetics. In this book, he talks about various different character structures, okay? The way our psychology is made up and how that is reflected in our physiology, i.e. in our kind of body posture. One of these character structures is the masochist, all right? Now, masochism is basically you taking enjoyment, taking pleasure out of receiving pain. Sounds ludicrous, right? You've got to be really fucked up or have some really perverted kink for that to be the case. Now, in this video, I want to talk about why the nice guy or any kind of codependent is actually a masochist. So the nice guy's codependency often shows up as tolerating the intolerable. These kind of people will suffer and endure, white knuckle, muscle their way through relationships in which they are not satisfied, in which they are not totally happy. And despite knowing that and leaving the relationship like other people would, they will stick through it. Okay? So in that sense, they are inflicting pain on themselves by enduring. And often nice guys will kind of have some kind of noble feeling of superiority, all right? They wear it like a badge of honor, i.e., hey, look at me, I can muscle my way through this really tough relationship where no one else can. Really dysfunctional, no? So again, actually the nice guy has deep feelings of inferiority compared to other people. And this actually stems from childhood, which I'm going to go on to in a little bit. But with his feeling of inferiority, he's looking for ways that he can feel superior compared to his peers. And one way can be, hey, look at me, I'm noble, I can stick through and commit to a relationship without realizing he's actually self-sabotaging. He's making his life miserable. Okay, so the message is, gents, if you are in a relationship which you absolutely hate, which you're not satisfied with, and you have been doing the work, all right, you've genuinely been doing the work, you've been leaning in, all right, speaking up for your needs, asserting boundaries in a way which it makes it easy for your partner to come on board and meet you where you want to be met. If you're doing all of this stuff, and yet it's still causing you grief, if there's still friction points, okay, if you're still butting heads, know that you are allowed to leave, all right? You are allowed to put yourself first, all right? I am passionate about this because this was very much me for a long time, okay? In my relationship, we were working, we were doing the work, and nevertheless, needs weren't getting met, we were butting heads, and there were just some deep incompatibilities I didn't want to look at because, and I look back on it now, I had this masochistic trait in me, all right? I saw it as something noble. I wanted to save face and not leave that relationship. So nice guys are masochists because they have a tendency to submit to people, all right? They have very limited ability to assert themselves, and thereby they fall into these people-pleasing tendencies where they prioritize the needs and comforts of others at their own expense. And as they are afraid of asserting themselves, okay, they thereby let their sovereignty, let their autonomy be restricted. Okay, for them, this is the only way that they can stay in a relationship. It's basically a question of, okay, asserting myself, having my autonomy, all right, getting my needs met, or having the closeness of the relationship. There's no having them both together. It's either or, and they sacrifice that autonomy, that sovereignty for the sake of being close. The result of this is that they limit their needs because they can't advocate themselves, stuff I've talked about in a lot of my other videos on nice guy syndrome. And this leads to a lot of spite, a lot of resentment in the relationship, which gets played out as passive-aggressive behavior, which gets played out as rage attacks. Right? They believe if they were to assert any of their negative feelings or unexpressed desires or preferences, they believe that they will lose the connection, which on a very deep psychological level is so important on them. Again, they are codependent. All right, where does this come from? Often with nice guys, this is coming from an overbearing mother, but not always the case, can be both parents. But they were humiliated and shamed as a child. Any kind of reach for self-expression or self-autonomy was put down by their parents, all right? They were punished for it, okay? And this makes them grow up constantly suppressing their autonomy, their authentic expression, right? So they would have an overbearing mother who guilted him for any declaration of autonomy, of freedom, or any expression of negative emotions. And one big insight from Alexander Lowen's book was where he says it often comes in the form of temper tantrums being put down. And I remember when I was a lot younger, I used to be a pretty aggressive kid. I was very angry. I had a lot of tantrums, right? And I remember over time, these were punished more and more. And I acquired a lot of shame, a lot of guilt. And it's interesting when reading that, it resonated very strongly, okay? So when these temper tantrums get put down as basically a declaration of autonomy, how you're feeling, negative feelings, when you get shamed and humiliated for these, you end up going into a submissive state, all right? You keel over, you capitulate, like, okay, I did wrong, I shouldn't do that, I'm getting punished. And that just lays the psychological foundation for when you then come into adulthood and you have this submissive nature. You're not able to assert yourself. You're not able to express your negative feelings. Or if you do, tends to be the pattern that they do get crushed, and that just reaffirms this foundational psychology you're operating from. And then the result of that is the nice guy cannot leave a bad relationship. And Dr. Robert Glover really stresses this in his book, No More Mr. Nice Guy, how nice guys are bad enders. So how is this masochistic behavior showing up in relationships? Well, there are three primary areas. The first is actually pedestaling the woman, all right? Again, it's coming from this inferiority complex where he sees a woman as being better than him and that he's got to capitulate to her needs and desires. Bringing me on to the second point is this fawning behavior, okay? Whenever there's criticism or stress or request directed at him, he will very easily put aside his own preferences, his own needs, his own desires, boundaries, whatever it is, to make way for that other person, all right? And this is ultimately what is making a relationship so miserable for the nice guy. And the last is passivity, all right? He has learned to be more submissive in his nature to make a relationship work. He never wants to rock the boat. He never wants to assert himself, his needs, his opinions, etc., in case it might make that other person uncomfortable. And again, so when he's operating constantly from this passive nature, he will just become kind of docile. He won't have that backbone which will make him feel empowered in his masculine energy. So I'll read here a little bit from the book from Alexander Lowen. He writes, "With the masochist, here the conflict is between love or closeness and freedom. Simply stated, it is if I am free, you will not love me. Faced with this conflict, the masochist says, I'll be your good boy and you will love me again. All right, this is a people-pleasing pattern, the nice guy pattern. This is the bowing down, okay? I will be the good boy. I'll be who you want me to be just so that you might like me and I'll get that validation, all the stuff I normally talk about. All right, guys, going to bring this to a wrap here. I want you to just reflect on your past relationship experience, your current relationship experience. Where are you being masochistic? All right, where are you enduring something which is basically making you suffer for the sake of keeping face, all right? Because you are unable to assert yourself, all right? Or perhaps because you have kind of some noble superiority complex around it. As always, guys, hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Share this video with anyone who might get value out of it. Leave your thoughts in the comments below and do stay tuned for more content.